Next up is Lauren Zarzar with ChromaTiR.
Hello, I'm Lauren Zarzar, Assistant Professor of Chemistry, and I'm excited to tell you about ChromaTiR, which is a color-shifting coatings technology platform developed in my research lab. So color-shifting coatings change color when they're viewed from different angles or under different lighting conditions, and they have clear aesthetic appeal, but also important technological applications. For instance, for coatings, also for security and anti-counterfeiting applications. So we can envision lots of exciting applications for color-shifting coatings. However, their use is currently fairly niche and limited. And largely this is due to the underlying optical mechanisms by which color is created. So currently, technology uses either diffraction or thin film interference, and both of these optical mechanisms require control over the nanoscale features of the coatings. And this requires expensive processing conditions such as vacuum processing technologies or in clean rooms, which drives up the cost tremendously. So for example, this color shifting car coating costs thousands of dollars per gallon. So our solution to this problem is a fundamentally new optical mechanism for creating color. So we create microscale structured surfaces. Light reflects within these microscale surfaces and can interfere to create color. So each microwell actually will reflect its own color, and when viewed collectively, we create very large-scale macroscopic color shifting effects. So here's one of our prototype materials when viewed outside. We've placed a sample of this on the judges table. And so this surface is just created with two materials with a microscale interface with a dimension shown. Importantly, there are no metals, no nanoparticles, and no nanofeatures. So currently the team consists of myself. I have expertise in dynamic microscale materials, Amy Goodling, who's a great graduate student and our experimental lead, Caleb Meredith, who's a graduate student, our commercialization lead at his previous startup experience. We have a patent pending on this optical mechanism, and our work was highlighted earlier this year on the cover of Nature. We've already been speaking to a number of prominent coating companies and received positive feedback because, one, we're using microscale structures, which is compatible with scalable manufacturing technology. And two, we only need two materials to generate this effect, which provides for very customizable formulations. Because this is a platform technology, we know we have to talk to more customers, for instance, through the I-Core program. But based on feedback we've already received, we also know that we have to start doing pilot scale formulations because these formulations will help our future customers visualize how they will use our technology in their products. Once we have pilot scale formulations, we expect to be able to license field of use to companies in a wide range of industries, for instance, cosmetics, automotive, and architectural coatings, or security coatings, for example. So this really is a platform technology based on a fundamentally new optical mechanism for creating color. So at ChromaTiR, our goal is to change the way the world looks. Thank you.
So Lauren, there's other color shifting technologies out there. Can you talk a little bit about your differentiation from your competitors?
So currently our competitors rely always on nanostructured coatings. Either that means tens to hundreds of layers of nanometer scale thickness coatings and multi-layers, or it means pigments that have some surface diffraction grading on them. So our technology requires absolutely no nanoscale features at all and no thin film coatings at all either. The technology works on microscale structures which support multiple paths of total internal reflection of light. So that's where the interference comes from. So it's still an interference effect, largely like other color shifting coatings, but the optical mechanism by which it's created allows us to harness this effect in materials you would never be able to think about using to create color shifting coatings.
Does that make your solution less expensive than what's on the market today?
Exactly, definitely less expensive. So the materials we've been using, for instance, are all polymers. So we expect to be able to use roll-to-roll or plate-to-plate micro-embossing with commodity polymers that are typically in use. We don't use any metals and we don't use any oxides, so we don't require any sort of vacuum processing.
So does that translate into it saves 10%, it saves an order of magnitude, or what's the sort of expectation
I don't have a great answer for you. Part of what we need to do is to do more investigation for exactly the best manufacturing strategy for this and price that out. But given how incredibly expensive the current technologies already are, we're very confident that we can significantly decrease that cost.
You indicated you're going to start doing some pilots, and do you have a prioritized list of companies you're going to work with or markets you're going to go after that you'll start with, or is that still in the workings?
It's still a little bit in the works. That's what we hope to do through the I-Corps program is find more customers. Most of our interest thus far has been coming from coatings companies such as PPG, Axalta, companies which are looking for lower priced color shifting coatings, because currently when they do cost thousands of dollars per gallon, this really restricts the uses and the options that they have.
In your customer discovery with PPG, 3M, and so on, what kind of feedback have you had so far?
It's been quite positive. I think that in order to get more people excited, though, they really want to see a formulation and a dispersion. So currently we have our film preparations, and what we'd like to be able to do is demonstrate that we can actually formulate this in either a powder or a liquid paint. And once we can do that, I think that we're going to get a lot more interest, because based on the inputs and the fabrication methods we expect to use, I do think it's going to be much more scalable and versatile than the existing platforms.
So just as a follow-up to that, if they're expressing interest, have they, or have you asked them for any kind of strategic investment?
We've had a few negotiations, but so far we don't have any agreements in place.
That could be something to consider.
Do you have a perspective on, you put a color shifting and you show pictures with a number of different applications. Is there some place where the technology will differentiate itself most readily, or an application where it will differentiate itself most readily, in your opinion?
So in terms of the properties of the coating, you think?
Properties of the coating, and put it on sneakers, put it on cars, put it on, where does it really make a difference?
Yeah, so I think obviously the aesthetic appeal, but you could argue maybe that's not quite as impactful. But I do think that because it's a fundamentally new optical mechanism, we are actually creating separations of colors that are not, angular separations of colors not achievable actually with the current existing mechanisms for controlling light. So we really can control light and direct light and colors in ways that you can't currently do. One really promising direction, I think, is in security and anti-counterfeiting, because we can control microstructures, create arbitrary shapes to create very intricate color patterns that would be difficult to reverse engineer. And if we can produce those in a scalable fashion, we might be able to create very hard to reproduce optical coatings for security.
Your team looks a little young to me. Of course, at my age, everybody looks young to me. What type of advisory board do you have? Do you have an advisory board that's helping you?
We don't have an official advisory board yet. We've been seeking advice from many places at the university, but no official advisory board.
Any last question? Thank you very much.